Political issues, and as you may be observing that every next day there is an article on trade war, future of multilateralism, and WTO, India's interest, global implications. Okay, so today itself there was an article on WTO. So I think it's a very probable question, and maybe trade war can also be a essay. Okay, so I'll start with the trade war itself, and first listen then write. Okay, so one question I asked in the test also, that either by rule or by war, Western countries, they force other countries to open, and in context of what is the future of WTO. Okay, so as you know, international politics revolves around USA. Okay, so it's a US foreign policy that is shaping the world or the events around the world, and many unusual things have happened. For example, Trump meeting North Korea, Trump meeting with Putin, and Trump embarrassing allies like Britain, even Canada, and on the other hand, Trump praising. So geopolitical events, there are many geopolitical events, but you can all link what all is happening and what is the basic dynamics of it, because one event is linked to the other event. Okay, so American foreign policy, USA, and what has been the grand strategy of USA. And the postures of Trump or Obama may differ, but there is a continuity in this foreign policy. Okay, so what is the grand strategy of USA now or earlier? It is all geared to the grand objective of US hegemony. So any question related to USA, you can start with their grand strategy to maintain US hegemony. Fine. Now, whatever Trump is doing and whatever earlier administration, the fundamentals remain the same. Only the Trump strategies or tactics may have changed, but not completely. There is no complete qualitative change in Trump and Obama administration. And you know that the US hegemony, as I have told in the class, is based on two broad objectives. First, the broad objective is to control the world trade. Okay. Now, to control the world trade, they also need to control the trade routes. They need to control the trade routes. And the most important trade route, obviously, oceans. Controlling the oceans. Now, the second basic thing is check the rise of continental power, basically Eurasian power, as well as check the rise of regional hegemony. this basic concept, you can note it side by side, fine. This basic concept will be explaining the entire policy of Trump, okay? And this can be explained as geoeconomics, and this can be explained as geopolitics. And there is an intersection of geoeconomics and geopolitics, fine. Both two aims, they are always together, fine. So if you see USA, Trump administration, initially last year they have given the security policy. This year they have given their trade policy, okay? Security policy and trade policy. Now security policy and trade policy, they are not independent of each other, they are complementary, okay? Complement. And the theme of both, whether security policy or trade policy, is America first. This is explicitly mentioned here, explicitly mentioned here. It's not that only Trump is talking about America first. Others are also doing same thing. Obama was also doing same thing. Only difference was he was not making so much of noise. Fine. So it has always been. Now the security policy very explicitly mentions US enemies. That includes China, Russia, Iran, Korea. Fine. And US economic policies, they are also completely geared to achieve these objectives itself. Okay? Now here the biggest threat has become China. Okay? So primarily there is a challenge or to US hegemony. US hegemony is getting challenged from China, and the rise of China is a very serious concern. If you go by even the theories of Samuel P. Huntington, two challenges. One is Islamic world and the other is China, because China being a core state. Okay? The bigger threat is this, not this. But much bigger threat is if they combine together. And if you go by the statement of Lee Kuan Yew, who quotes Napoleon, and what they say that when China will come out of its slumber, it will astonish the world. Okay? Now, the key US allies. If you see key US allies, the key US allies are European countries. Next, the key US allies are Japan, South Korea, then some countries of ASEAN region, Australia, New Zealand. In Islamic world, Saudi Arabia. Actually, there is now a change of attitude towards Europe, towards Japan, Arabia, Saudi Arabia, Israel. Okay. So even if they look like US allies, but US fundamentals has always been America first. ठीक है? So US allies have been there to share the burden. Share the burden of USA. That's all. Fine. And among all those, the closest allies can be the European allies. USA has started the trade war against against China, even against Europe. But it may happen that it is just a drama. It may be a drama of USA and US and Europe, they are together. Why all this drama is happening? Because the war should appear unbiased. Okay? But ultimately, the entire game is to trap China the most as a main adversary. Because you see, USA and Europe is also started the trade war, but they have also declared the ceasefire. Fine. South Korea and USA, trade war, then ceasefire, entering into negotiations. Japan entering into negotiations. All others, they are entering into negotiations. Okay? And the main, even India also. India, like US President at a G7 summit in Quebec, has criticized India for imposing high tariffs. He has even cancelled 2+2 dialogue, but has again restarted. Fine. So main thing is why trade war against China and why at this moment? Because China is growing very fast. Okay? So the question is either now or never. If not now, USA will not be able to manage the rise of China. And why this is the best moment? This is the best moment because China is internally facing the turmoil. What is the indication that China is internally facing the turmoil? The very tightening of the control of Communist Party over the administration in China. Okay? So this may be the best, and that is why US is going ahead with this, going ahead with trade war at any cost. It is doing it with the do or die spirit. Because the economists, they are also suggesting that maybe USA will not benefit. Maybe there can be a slowdown of overall economy, slowdown of overall demand. Overall demand slowdowns, then even USA is going for manufacturing the products, but who is going to buy it? But again for USA, two things. First of all, US economy. Because US continues to be the strongest economy, and as predicted by Jim O'Neill, by 2050 or this, China will be surpassing. So where is the time? And once China will surpass the US economy, becomes many times more bigger market than US market, and there will be so much interlinkage in the global supply chains that it will not be possible for USA. Other countries will leave USA for sake of China. So that is why USA has to stop China right now. Fine. Now, the trade war, how does it matter for India, and do you think this will benefit India? You think it will benefit India, trade war? No. Theoretically, yes. Realistically, no. The thing is still we do not have the capacity. Still we do not have the sound fundamentals. And the history says that trade war spirals into the currency war. Okay? And when the currency war happens, India is not going to benefit. When currency devaluates, it is beneficial to the country which is a net exporter. India is not a net exporter. Rather, our exports are going to become costlier because we will have to pay more for oil. Fine. So India's interest does not lie in the trade war. India's interest does not lie in the currency war, because we have not prepared ourselves to take the advantage. And the moment it is said America first, it symbolizes what? It symbolizes the death of multilateralism. The death of multilateralism, or US anger against WTO, is not a new. Trump is not the first president. They have been regularly talking about WTO's, or USA has a historical grievances against WTO, especially since 2001 onward, when China has joined WTO. Fine. And what are the main grievances of USA against WTO? Today's paper, I think in Hindu it is itself mentioned. Main thing is USA does not trust in the fidelity of WTO's dispute settlement body. Dispute settlement body, US has whatever is there in that article that is mentioned in USA's trade policy, वहीं से वो article है. तो USA has mentioned that WTO has proved completely ineffective in forcing China to reform. And China continues to be a statist economy. And China has been going throughout, even when China is in WTO, China has never left the mercantilist economy. You understand what is mercantilist economy? Mercantilist economy is the view that resources, gold is limited. So a country has to be a net exporter. Export more and don't import at all. So China has been a mercantilist country in a WTO, and WTO norms, they have not been successful in forcing China to change towards liberalism. So if China says that as a sovereign country, China has all right to protect its sovereignty and to take the decision which is in the best interest of China, USA has also asserted that may be China's right, but that is also USA's right to take the decision which is best in USA's interest. So basically, it is a war between the two rising powers as explained through the just call somebody, as explained through the concept of Thucydides trap by Graham Allison, and between, like, when two elephants fight, ultimately it is the grass or the wretched of the earth which suffer. So in these two fights, it's the developing countries, thoda fan chalana, developing countries which are, they are not going to be beneficiaries. And the problem is, it is a staged drama which the Western countries are doing. EU, including Japan also, and USA, because the anger of USA is not just against China, it is against the entire BRICS countries or the developing countries which are enjoying the flexibilities. So what USA is saying, Trump has held that USA will come out of WTO. But Trump's representative of trade, he believes that WTO talks should continue. So the present US game on WTO is explained through the game of, which game? Game of good cop and a bad cop, where Trump is a good cop and Lighthizer, the US representative of trade, is a good cop. And USA does not want to end WTO, but USA want that, like earlier, now also WTO should be working in the interest of USA. Fine. So USA has never been multilateral. USA has always been unilateral. Fine. And USA or developed countries, they are in the habit of climbing the ladder and then removing the ladder for others. Okay. So taking the advantage but not letting the advantage to be reaped by the others. So it is in the interest of third world countries to ensure that multilateralism survives. But it is not in the capacity of third world countries to ensure that multilateralism will survive. If multilateralism will survive, it will survive only if the good sense prevails. Most importantly in China. If China changes, US will change. So this also fulfills the prophecy of Thucydides. What he said, that the great powers, powerful do what they supposed to do, and weak suffer what they are supposed to suffer. So in this trade war, ultimately the sufferers are going to be the developing countries like India, and it doesn't seem that India has that much leverage, and USA has also blamed India for the WTO going out of irrelevance. So USA in its trade policy, they have mentioned that WTO 2.0 should start. Right? That 90s phase is over. The situations are very different and the present situations are different. And India is sticking to the Doha mandate, whereas the nature of the trade has changed. The nature of the trading partners have changed. So China's mercantilism, India's protectionism, or India's inability to be flexible enough, he is blaming that they are responsible. So in this situation, what is the hedging action India has, what hedge India can do. So India should try to make itself competitive as early as possible, and at the same time India should conclude the bilateral as well as multilateral agreements, for example RCEP, for example India EU free trade agreement, because it's not going to be a win-win situation, okay, rather it is going to be a bigger loss for India in case this proceeds. So you have understood this particular theme, okay? So now first of all tell me what questions you have on this topic. What question you think is there and you will not be able to answer the question? Pardon? नहीं, वो तो Trump policy is called as a specific cocktail prepared on moving rock combined with the tariff threats and Twitter. ठीक है, कुछ है एग्जैक्टली ये सब कंबाइन करके बनती है उसकी पॉलिसी, उसमें जाना नहीं है. Actually, what is the issue? Russia and China should not come together. Fine. So he is trying to bring Russia to its own side. Similarly, Iran, because Iran is not changing, he is taking the tough stand. So he is either himself playing the good cop, bad cop, or he is having with him the good cop and bad cop strategy. Okay, so this is all part of his geopolitical trends. I will discuss his Iran and other policies, his policy towards Putin. So actually he is fooling Putin. Okay, and Putin is not the person who he can fool. Okay, this is the problem. Fine. So Russia is more concerned. Sorry, China is concerned that if he can offer the concessions to Putin. Plus, you should remember that in international politics there is no permanent friend. See, Putin going to China because Russia is isolated. But somewhere there is a fear in Russia about the rising China, because their area or their main concern is in Eurasia and Central Asia. So Putin would also not mind Trump challenging China. Putin would like to take the advantage of China, would like to take that China take their gas. But at the same time, Putin would like USA balancing China. Fine? So it's a complicated game, but the rules are very simple in international politics. Fine? So this is how the countries are interlinked, and here India doesn't seem to be a main party or a strong contender. क्या? Obviously, मतलब India is unable to do things. Obviously bad, because you are on the receiving end. The others are setting the game. You are only going for the defense. What else? Responses. तो हमने कोई गेम बनाया ही नहीं, ठीक है? तो हम क्या कर रहे हैं? China coming to us, we are going with China. US coming to us, and we are calling it as non-alignment, strategic autonomy. तो हम लोग तो कोई गेम के प्लेयर नहीं है. We are not a player. Player is, even you can say North Korea is a big player. North Korea is a big player, Iran is a big player, Russia is a player. India क्या है? India is a non-harmful country. अब पॉलिटिक्स में पीपल शुड लिसन टू यू, तो उस क्या है, यू प्रिंस शुड नो हाउ टू बी बैड रादर देन गुड. तो इंडिया को एनीबडी कैन टेक इट फॉर ग्रांटेड, क्योंकि इंडिया का ना तो कोई गेम है. व्हाट गेम इंडिया हैज, प्लस व्हाट कैपेसिटी इंडिया हैज टू हार्म द अदर. यू हैव नॉट वर्कड ऑन इन एनी ऑफ दिस कैपेसिटी. तो तुम्हारा क्या है, स्पेक्टेटर, जहां भी बुलाते हैं वहां चले जाओ. थाली के बैगन जैसे इधर तो उधर, कुछ नहीं. अल्टीमेटली अपना सहारा तो अफ्रीका और यही सब लोग हैं. ठीक है, तो अब और क्वेश्चन बताओ, नहीं तो मैं लिखाऊं जल्दी. अपडेट ऑफ, अभी तो ट्रेड पॉलिसी का ही दैट डिटेल आई विल गिव. तो थियरी हर जगह जबरदस्ती नहीं लाना है. ठीक है, जहां आप आ रही है उसी में रखो और नेचुरल फ्लो में रहना है. ठीक है, तो यही क्वेश्चन क्या जाए पहले. There is no end of history and there is a end of the end of history. हाँ, तो end of the end of history तो बहुत पहले सैमुअल पी हंटिंगटन ही बता चुके हैं. ठीक है, तो should we do this question और इसका एक what are USA's grievances and all कि basics what you want to write हैं, basic से करना है. स्टोरीज की शौक है तुम लोगों को, है. ठीक है, अब मतलब ये सब भी ग्रैंड स्ट्रेटेजी है सर. अच्छा, तो इसको फिर क्वेश्चन फॉर्मेट में भी लिख लो. तो क्वेश्चन ही लिखो, राइट. हाँ, तो वो जियो पॉलिटिक्स हम लोग करेंगे, बट पहले मेन है कि डब्ल्यूटीओ के अगेंस्ट यूएस के ग्रीवेंसेस, फ्यूचर ऑफ मल्टीलेटरलिज्म एंड द ट्रेड वॉर एंड द करेंसी वॉर. पहले एक क्वेश्चन लिखो, राइट. व्हाट कैन बी द पॉसिबल मोटिवेशंस of the countries behind the present trade war. Full stop, right. Examine the consequences of the trade war on the present world order. ठीक है, अब नेक्स्ट लिखो, राइट. एक और क्वेश्चन लिखो. डू यू थिंक दैट द ट्रेड वॉर्स have been the recurrent feature of international politics, or it is a comparatively new phenomena. Right, give reasons in support of your answer. फिर next लिखो right in context of the present trade war, examine the prospects of multilateralism. Multilateralism in general and WTO in particular. Next, we go examine the impact of trade wars, current trade war on India and how India should deal with the challenges and the opportunities. Okay. So first of all, you write what is a trade war. Right. The trade war is being defined in context of the actions of US administration based on right inverted commas America first policy. तो कुछ एक दो फैक्ट्स भी दे देना, ठीक है. अब नेक्स्ट लिखो ऐसे ही on 6th July 2018 both USA and China have imposed tariffs on each other's products. Right, US started with the imposition of %25 tariff on the Chinese goods worth 34 billion US dollars, comma, further expanded further extended, right, extended to 200 billion US dollars with a plan to go further in coming months. Right, USA has targeted steel, aluminium, solar cells panels, solar panels, washing machines, computer equipments, right? In response, China had retaliated with equivalent tariffs on initially US exports of worth $64 billion US, full stop, right? China targeted the soybean, pork and electrical vehicles to begin with. Right. It is to be noted that China exports more and imports less from USA. Right, next paragraph. Right, just next go just after elections, Trump announced that from now onwards it is going to be America first. Full stop, right? Every decision on trade, immigration, foreign affairs, will be made to benefit American workers and families. Right, next. Next paragraph. In response, China has expressed that it will not yield to the arm twisting full stop, right? As a sovereign country, China is having all rights to do what is in the interest of the country. Full stop. In response, USA held that as a sovereign country, China is free to do what it wants to do, but USA as a sovereign nation is also free to respond with all available tools ठीक है तो राइट नेक्स्ट लिखो राइट thus the trade war and the war of words continue right in one of his tweets US President mentioned right inverted commas trade wars are good and easy to win ठीक है अब लिखो राइट हाउ टू या हाउ द प्रेजेंट trade war can be explained right the present trade war can be explained through the Graham-Allison's concept of the Thucydides trap right Graham-Allison in his book right the title of the book Destined for War refers to the ancient wisdom represented by Thucydides, known as the father of realism या realist tradition in the West. लिखो what is the theme of the Thucydides trap? Right, it gives the valuable insight with respect to what would happen between the rising power and the ruling power. Right? He has analyzed 16 instances out of 16, 12 cases led to the war. right? The three major examples are first 15th century ruling Portugal versus rising Spain. Next 17th century, right, ruling Dutch versus rising British. 20th century, ruling British versus rising USA. Right in next paragraph, right, the theory suggests that in most of the situations, the rising power wins. Right, next paragraph. In present context, USA is the ruling power and China is the rising power. अब लिखो why USA is concerned. Right, regarding China, it is said that, it is believed that Napoleon mentioned that once China comes out of its slumber, it will astonish the world. Next, right, Samuel P. Huntington describes, astonish the world. Samuel P. Huntington describes the war between USA and China as core conflict. Considering both as core states, वो सिनिक सिविलाइजेशन का, ये वेस्टर्न सिविलाइजेशन का. Whereas the war between USA and Islamic world as, right inverted commas, fault line conflict. Right, he also mentions that it will be a nightmare if China develops access with the Islamic world ठीक है. अब लिखो व्हाट आर द फंडामेंटल्स ऑफ यूएस फॉरेन पॉलिसी. What are the fundamentals of US foreign policy? नहीं, कोर स्टेट उन्होंने अपने से क्लासिफाई किया है कि 9 सिविलाइजेशंस हैं. हर सिविलाइजेशन में से 5 सिविलाइजेशंस ऐसी हैं जिनके अपने कोर स्टेट्स हैं. तो मेन फाइट कोर स्टेट्स में होगा. तो चाइना सिनिक सिविलाइजेशन, यूएसए वेस्टर्न लिबरल सिविलाइजेशन. ठीक है. अब फॉल्ट लाइन, जैसे अर्थक्वेक है तो अर्थक्वेक के ट्रिमर्स का एक कोर होता है ना, और ये छोटे मोटे टपोरी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, ये टपोरी वाला है, ये वाला मेन है, यहाँ पे ध्यान देना है. इसीलिए क्या करना है, एशिया पिवट, मिडिल ईस्ट को तो ऐसे ही लड़ने दो, यहाँ पे ध्यान रखना है, एशिया पिवट पॉलिसी. Don't give anything, just listen. What you know, you keep it with you. जल्दी finish करो सब. कहाँ पहुँचे? What? Fundamentals of US foreign policy. Right. Right. The ultimate aim of US foreign policy is फर्स्ट लिखो, securing the welfare of its people. 2, protecting its mainland or territory. Right, next. Right, these goals require US hegemony. Right, US hegemony requires first, control the world trade. Control the world trade. Hence, control the oceans. Second, check the rise of continental power. And regional hegemons. Right, next paragraph. From the very beginning, there has been an intersection between USA's geopolitics and USA's geoeconomics. ठीक है, तो one is for furthering the other. Right, even at present we can see the perfect congruence between Trump administration's national security policy pronounced in 2017 December and the trade policy pronounced in 2018. Right. Both the policies explicitly declare the goal of, right inverted commas, America first. Right. In both the policies, the major target is China. Right. Though in national security policy, he mentions about Russia, Iran, North Korea, right. In trade policy, US Office of Trade Representative blames other countries, including US allies and strategic partners, for being unfair. ठीक है, अब लिखो राइट नेक्स्ट पैराग्राफ. एज suggested by Trump, US is free to respond with all available means. Full stop. Right. It includes the strategic means, expressed through his policy of, right inverted commas, Indo-Pacific, a new name for Indo-Pacific policy, a new name for the rebalance, right, as well as the trade policy, as Trump thinks that trade wars are good and easy to win. ठीक है, तो because China has a nuclear deterrence, तो best way of war तो या तो trade war ही है और it is good and easy to win. अब लिखो right, why China, sorry, right, why USA has taken extreme stand. Right, US-China conflict has been brewing, B-R-E-W-I-N-G, brewing since long, brewing since long. comma, right? Since China has been integrated in WTO, in 2001, comma, China has not acted as per the expectations. Full stop, right? USA expected China will adopt to the open trade policy and once China will become economically prosperous, comma, China will automatically move towards democracy. ठीक है, अब डेमोक्रेसी आएगी तो पपेट रूलर बटा के अपना काम करते रहेंगे, यही उनका मेन था, राइट राइट. ऑन द कॉन्ट्ररी, China continued to be mercantilist, comma, took benefits of WTO, comma, did not change to market economy, and far from being moving towards democracy, comma, China has become more authoritarian. Right. In 1978, the size of Chinese economy was 10% of US economy. Comma, in 2007 it became 60%, comma, in 2014 it became equal. Which is the largest economy? Purchasing power term में और comparative terms में size. Anyway, तो हाँ not equal. फिलहाल आगे वाला वो लिखो, उसको skip करो, लिखो right. Right. It is predicted that by 2023 it will become 50% bigger than US economy. वो वाला शायद कुछ और होगा, 50%. Next, मतलब 2 times of US economy. It will become 2 times of US economy. Next, by 2040, it will become 3 times. Right, as Chinese economy will expand, comma, the world will be more integrated. Will be more and more integrated with China. And then it will be more difficult to isolate China. Right, hence it is either now or never. Okay, right, China's capacity to challenge US hegemony comes from its economic growth. Right, hence it is very important to slow down the rate of economic growth of China. Full stop, right? Even the hegemony of the Communist Party of China is based on its ability to sustain the rate of economic growth. Right, once growth weakens, comma, resentment will rise. Comma, now the only option available for the regime change okay, so now it is an urgency, right? Right, US have been trying to negotiate with China. Both at WTO and at bilateral levels. Right, however, China has not fulfilled its promises. Right, next look, right, the urgency also comes because of first thing, right, China's mega connectivity projects. Second, China is making effort to make its currency. The reserve currency, comma, challenging the hegemony of US dollars. तो करेंसी को वीकन भी करना पड़ेगा. कितना सिस्टमेटिकली और सिंपल है कंसेप्ट, ठीक है. तो ऑब्वियसली दे आर इन अ पोजीशन टू फोर्स चाइना टू वीकन इट्स करेंसी. तो चाइना एक्चुअली was not listening to USA, was fine, but height of audacity started. ये भी कर रहे हो, AIIB और ये सब चीज़ें बना रहे हो. अब चाइना के साथ ही अगर सबका ट्रेड हो गया तो लोग तो चाइनीज़ करेंसी में ही ट्रांजैक्शन करने लगेंगे. अब चाइनीज़ करेंसी में ट्रांजैक्शन एंड द स्पीड विद विच चाइना इज एस्टैब्लिशिंग इट्स फाइनेंशियल आर्किटेक्चर. तो हेजिमनी के लिए यू नीड व्हाट? फॉर हेजिमनी ऑफ द करेंसी, which currency is a reserve currency which is used in the international trade and which is available, which is convertible easily. So China has been audacious, that's the main problem. इतना नहीं करना था इनको, ठीक है. तो अब ये now this is something which USA cannot accept because the well-being of USA itself depends. US economy can absorb any economic shocks subject to the condition dollar remains the reserve currency. Okay, subject to the condition people continue to purchase the dollars, but now it is hurting at where it hurts the most. Okay, so China is actually forcing USA to take such actions, and Chinese actions, it is not USA which is really responsible for the end of multilateralism or the challenges to globalization. So China projects itself to be the savior of globalization at World Economic Forums, but actually China is the main culprit, and China is trying to bring EU to its side. China is trying to bring other developing countries to its side. But the two biggest markets in the world are EU and USA. And there was a summit in Beijing between the EU and China. And it was very clear that there have been retaliation in EU also and a Trump's tariff war against EU. But EU found that there is a problem in the ways of Trump, but not in the substance. And somewhere China has to mend its ways. And to attract EU, China has actually offered lot of concessions to EU, and EU या USA का दोनों का जो main concern from China है intellectual property right and its theft, और US के लिए intellectual property right biggest commodity है, ठीक है. तो with respect to that opening up of BMW manufacturing and all, China has offered that it will take strict measures. So China actually, US and EU, they are working together, and the gestures which are happening, they are just to show to the public. They are working together in sync, and China may get isolated. So it's not that China is telling itself as a protector of globalization, but countries are very well recognizing. And the Trump's stand with respect to NAFTA, this is also because if He will not revise NAFTA. And then there is a global supply chain, and China has an investment in Latin America and Mexico. So ultimately, indirectly, they are benefiting China. It has to be done. It has to be revised. And that is why they have gone for either NAFTA should help USA. So they being very blunt and straightforward. Either it should be in benefit of USA, or what is the need of that deal. Okay? So either what happens, and why this is happening, because WTO as an institution has not been able to perform. Had WTO been successful in establishing the multilateralism and punishing the culprits, that includes USA also, okay? But the problem is, because WTO is failing, so this trade war is taking place. Fine? So what is the last line you have done? क्या? वो थोड़ी कह रहे हैं, वो तो कह रहे हैं हम अपने, अगर हमारे ऊपर कोई अटैक करेगा, ट्रेड पॉलिसी में उन्होंने लिखा है वाई अमेरिका फर्स्ट, तो उन्होंने लिखा है कि नेशनल सिक्योरिटी लिंक्ड है. तो अगर हमारे ऊपर कोई अटैक करेगा तो आई विल टेक ऑल द मेजर्स. तो नेशनल इंटरेस्ट के में क्या है, वो तो मैकियावेलियन ही है. वाई यूएसए शुड लिसन, वाई नॉट चाइना? सो एंटायर both USA and China, they have to work it out, and the entire international community has to ensure that both of them, they come together on the table. India is the loser in all scenarios. ठीक है, इंडिया तो लूजर ही है. इंडिया सिर्फ कुछ नहीं कर पाएगा, मतलब किसी भी सिनेरियो में विनर नहीं है, क्योंकि जो सिनेरियो क्लाइमेट चेंज में हुआ वही सिनेरियो ट्रेड टॉक में होगा. यूएस तो चेंज नहीं होगा. चाइना की इतनी भी कैपेसिटी नहीं है, चाइना का उतना भी लीवरेज नहीं है. तो चाइना अगर एक्सेप्ट करता है कि फ्लेक्सिबिलिटीज और ये सब खत्म करें, तो चाइना तो अकेले नहीं डूबेगा, इंडिया को साथ में लेके डूबेगा. और यूएस का एग्रेशन तो इंडिया के अगेंस्ट भी है ना. इंडिया भी सेकंड मार्केट है, तो चाहे इनके साथ इनकी दोस्ती हो वो भी हमारे लिए खराब है, चाहे लड़ाई है वो भी हमारे लिए खराब. हमारे पास कुछ भी नहीं है. वी आर जस्ट द स्पेक्टेटर्स. हमें किसी में भी कुछ भी फायदा नहीं है, बिकॉज थिंग्स आर विल नेवर मूव अकॉर्डिंग टू अस, बिकॉज वी आर ऑलवेज टू लेट फॉर एवरीथिंग. ठीक है. एंड स्पीड इज अ डिटर्मिनेंट ऑफ पावर. एडेप्टेबिलिटी अगर है ही नहीं, एक अपॉर्चुनिटी है टू इंक्रीज द एक्सपोर्ट. मेन है टेक्सटाइल एंड लेदर, बट लेदर एंड टेक्सटाइल में वियतनाम एंड बांग्लादेश इंडिया से बहुत आगे जा चुके हैं. तो अपॉर्चुनिटीज तो आ रही हैं, लेकिन हम कर नहीं पा रहे. मतलब मेन है कि ट्रेड पॉलिसी इज नॉट इम्पॉर्टेंट, इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी इज इम्पॉर्टेंट. तो एक और अपने जैसे ही वी विल रिड्यूस, मतलब अपनी रुपी और डिवैल्यू तो हो ही रहा है. जैसे ही रुपी और डिवैल्यू होगा, देयर विल बी अ क्वेश्चन मार्क ऑन द स्टेबिलिटी कि कंट्री विल बी एबल टू पे द डेप्ट और नॉट. और जैसे ही डेप्ट पे नहीं करोगे तो जो भी इन्वेस्टमेंट है दैट विल अगेन गो आउट. तो सबसे बड़ा जो लॉस है वो ट्रेड वॉर में तो इंडिया का ही है, और कुछ नहीं यार. फॉर्चुनेटली वी कैन नॉट डू एनीथिंग. तो इसलिए इंटरनेशनल से जो ध्यान है डोमेस्टिक पर ही लगा सकते हो. अब इसमें मोदी जी कुछ कर भी नहीं सकते, क्योंकि फार्मर वार्मर इलेक्शन भी है सब. व्हाट है? नहीं है, इंडिया कुछ नहीं है. एक यूएस एम्बेसडर, इंडियाज एम्बेसडर टू यूएसए, शी हैज रिटन दैट when people get up in Washington, India is never in the mind. वॉशिंगटन के दिमाग में इंडिया होता ही नहीं, या इन द कैपिटल्स अराउंड द वर्ल्ड इंडिया इज नेवर इन द माइंड ऑफ एनीबडी. इंडिया इज insignificant country in international politics because you can manage India. India तो nuisance नहीं है ना, India को manage कर सकते हो. You should thank पाकिस्तान, ये कुछ तो importance बना दिया अपना. ठीक, पाकिस्तान के अलावा कोई नहीं सोचता, चाइना भी नहीं सोचता इंडिया को. India is no one in international politics. कोरिया के बारे में सोचते हैं, ईरान के बारे में सोचते हैं. ठीक है, चलो आगे बढ़ो. कहाँ पहुंचे लास्ट? हाँ, तो दीज आर द टू मेन ग्रीवेंसेस. इसीलिए व्हाट इज द मेन टारगेट? एंड चाइना इज अ एक्सपोर्ट ओरिएंटेड इकोनॉमी, तो मेन टारगेट इज टू किल द एक्सपोर्ट एंड डिवैल्यू इट्स करेंसी. ठीक है, अब लिखो, राइट, ऐसे लिखो क्वेश्चन. What are the prominent provisions in USA's new trade policy? Yeah, what are the prominent expressions they have done in the new trade policy? Where is WTO's headquarter? Geneva. तुम्हें पता है एक खास बात क्या? किस बिल्डिंग में है? हाँ? Same building which was used by League of Nations. Both League of Nations and WTO will be. League of Nations was killed by USA's protectionism, isolationism, and WTO is also coincidentally placed there, supposed to have the same fate, will die the death because of USA's isolationism. और USA की ग्रैंड स्ट्रेटजी हमेशा आइसोलेशनिज्म ही रही है, हमेशा अमेरिका फर्स्ट ही रही है, कभी आइसोलेशन चेंज थोड़ी हुआ है उनका. It has always been America first policy. Only we were fool not to understand. ठीक है, they have just changed the words, they have never changed the substance. From or that policy, in his trade policy, he mentions about George Washington. Washington के टाइम से यही पॉलिसी है उनकी. ठीक है, लिखो, राइट, या salient points which are mentioned in USA's trade policy. Right, the trade policy submitted by US trade representative to US Congress mentions the farewell speech of George Washington. Right, Washington का लिखो. There can be no greater error than to expect, calculate, real favors from nation to nation. No nation favors other nation. Full stop, right? He also advised that trade agreements should be temporary, abundant, or varied as experiences and circumstances determine. Right. Trump's policy is driven by right inverted commas pragmatic determination to use all leverages available to us. All leverages available to the world's largest economy. Comma, to open foreign markets, comma, obtain more efficient markets, and to expand the trade in a way which is fairer to all Americans. Full stop, right? लिखो right. Every action will be designed to expand US interests, comma, even with the partners' reciprocity will be the rule. Reciprocity and shared responsibility will be the rule. मतलब यूरोपियंस, कैनेडियंस, मैक्सिकन सबको सुधरना पड़ेगा. ठीक है, लिखो राइट. He has given 4 major goals of the trade policy. First, defend the national sovereignty over trade policy. Right in bracket. इसका मतलब है will not allow others to hijack. Will not allow others to hijack. Next, a strict enforcement of US trade laws. US trade laws हैं, फर्स्ट लिखो एक तो सेक्शन 301 of US Trade Act 1974 डैश करके लिखो राइट. इट अलाउज USA to suspend trade concessions in case of unfair practices. Next, section 201. Right, it allows USA to raise barriers in case US producers come under unusual competitive stress. For example, solar panels and washing machines. तो मतलब strict enforcement of US laws. Next लिखो, all possible leverages to encourage other countries to open markets and to protect core US interests like IPR, intellectual property rights. कितने गोल्स हो गए? 4 थे ना मेजर गोल्स. नेक्स्ट देखो, renegotiate the better deals bilateral as well as multilateral. Right, next paragraph लिखो, like USA security policy USA's trade policy will protect the national interest. देखो, right, next, the trade policy mentions first China specific actions, next NAFTA, next KORUS, KORUS, South Korea US free trade agreement, KORUS. Besides withdrawal from TPP and tariffs on EU, Canada, Japan, EU, Canada, Japan, Mexico. ठीक है, अब लिखो, what are the main grievances of China, USA against China? Yeah. Yeah. यही तो तरीका है भैया अभी यूएस हेजेमनी बचाने का. देखो, यूएस क्या है, डिक्लाइनिंग पावर है. अब नाउ और नेवर वाली सिचुएशन है, डू और डाई. ठीक है, या तो अभी रोक लो तो जब तक कोई तुम्हारे ऊपर डिपेंडेंट है तभी तक वो तुम्हारी बात सुनेगा। अगर और डिले किया और प्यार से समझ नहीं रहे, इट इज बेटर फॉर अ प्रिंस टू बी फियर्ड देन टू बी लव्ड, बिकॉज पीपल लव एट देयर ओन विल बट दे फियर एट द विल ऑफ द प्रिंस। तो व्हेन द सिचुएशन इज बैड यू हैव टू टेक द हार्ड एक्शंस। और कोई ऑप्शन बचा नहीं ना यूएसए के पास। ओबामा के थ्रू कुछ हुआ नहीं, ठीक है, और ओबामा कुछ गड़बड़ नहीं करे इसीलिए पहले ही नोबेल प्राइज दे दिया कि यही तो क्यों मिला उसे नोबेल प्राइज, क्योंकि उसके कमरे में रहेगा तो शर्म आएगी कि ऐसे नहीं करो, लोग कहेंगे वापस लो, और नोबेल प्राइज वापस नहीं देना अच्छी बात नहीं। तो पहले से ही पता था ओबामा भी ये सब करने वाला है, इसीलिए आते ही उसको खुद नहीं पता क्यों दिया मेरे को। लेकिन पीस प्राइज देने का मतलब ये है कि ओबामा थोड़ा सा डिसेंटली काम करेगा। अब इससे उम्मीद ही नहीं थी कि प्राइज भी चला जाएगा, ये करेंगे भी नहीं। तो अभी और ऑप्शन नहीं है ना यूएसए के पास कुछ भी, ऐसे भी मरना है, लेकिन ऐसे एक स्कोप है टू इम्प्रूव। अगर प्यार से डील करते रहे चाइना तो चाइना इतना बड़ा हो जाएगा ना, इट विल बी अपीजमेंट ऑफ चाइना। फिर ईयू, फिर ये सारे लोग आपके भाव खाने लग जाएंगे, ठीक है। तो क्या ऑप्शन नहीं? नहीं, अलग कहाँ है, पॉलिसी में कंटिन्यूटी है। यूएस जैसे समय जाएगा वैसे ही यूएस के लीवरेजेस कम होते जाएंगे ना। तो अब इन्होंने 10 साल समझा के देख लिया, 8 साल नहीं समझ रहे ना चाइना वाले। अब ईयू और चाइना और ये सब अपने अपने बेनिफिट्स में लगे हुए हैं, तो अब तो रिटेलिएटरी एक्शन ही लेना पड़ेगा। कहीं भी इलॉजिकल है उसका कोई भी एक्शन, कुछ भी लॉजिकल नहीं है, यही होना चाहिए। इट इज इमैटीरियल ट्रम्प है या कौन है, यूएस विल टेक सेम पॉलिसीज। तो एक बस गलती होगी, इसको नोबेल प्राइज दिया नहीं। क्यों नहीं दिया? क्योंकि इसने इलेक्शन से पहले उस तरीके के रिटोरिक्स कर दिए कि अगर नोबेल प्राइज देते तो लोग क्वेश्चन मार्क करते ना। अब ओबामा थोड़ा क्या था, ओबामा ने थोड़ा सा अच्छा मेंटेन करके रखा, तो उसको नोबेल प्राइज देते समय नोबेल प्राइज पे क्वेश्चन नहीं आता ना, तो इसको कुछ तो करना था। तो अब उसको पता है ना कि अभी नाउ और नेवर, और बेटर फॉर प्रिंस टू बी फियर्ड। तो सारे लोग तो सुधर ही रहे ना, इंडिया भी तो सुधर ही रहा है। इंडिया ने कौन है इनकी, डेविडसन, हर्ले डेविड, तो दे हैव एग्रीड ना। इंडिया तो हर एक बात सुन लेगा। In return, what India is getting? Special trading, strategic partner type of things. उसमें भी तो you are selling, they are selling their weapons. सब इंडिया, कुछ बचा नहीं ना इंडिया के पास। वो तो उसने इसी ट्रेड पॉलिसी में लिखा है, सिक्योरिटी पॉलिसी एंड ट्रेड पॉलिसी बोथ are meant for the same purpose.
But in the case of India, its allies imposing tariffs on one hand, India getting closer security wise, but on the other hand, US is also imposing tariffs. How can we complement?
हाँ, तो जब तक तुम टैरिफ इम्पोज नहीं करोगे तब तक ये लोग सुधरेंगे कैसे? ये तो वैसे ही बर्बाद हैं, मतलब यूएसए को परेशान कर ही रहे हैं ना। तो तुमने मना के कैरेट यू हैव ऑफर्ड, दैट डजंट वर्क, तो व्हाट ऑप्शन यू हैव स्टिक्स। तो तब इनको समझ में आएगा ना कि हाउ इम्पॉर्टेंट यूएस एज एन इकोनॉमी, क्योंकि यूएस ने एटलीस्ट इंडिया और चाइना में तो डिविजन्स कर ही रखे। तो कोई और क्या ऑप्शन, और कोई रास्ता कहाँ था? तुम ट्रेड टॉक्स पे बुलाओगे शी जिनपिंग को, वो क्या करता रहेगा? विल ही लिसन? ही विल नेवर लिसन। और कोई तरीका ही नहीं है ना, यू हैव टू स्टॉप इट। समझ गए? तो ट्रम्प हो या नो ट्रम्प हो, तो ऑटो पायलट मोड पे है उनकी फॉरेन पॉलिसी, कोई चेंज नहीं है। हाँ, तो अभी जरूरत है डराने की, इसलिए डराया जा रहा है। फाइन, लिखो कहाँ पहुंचे। मेन ग्रीवेंसेस ऑफ यूएसए अगेंस्ट चाइना। पहला तो वही है, राइट, चाइना continues to be mercantilist. वही है import substitution, export promotion, तो वो mercantilist ही हैं, और China is taking the advantage of WTO and not giving things in return. ठीक है, next लिखो, right, next राइट ग्रीवेंस है चाइना, या राइट, चाइनाज मेड इन चाइना 2025 प्रोग्राम, मेड इन चाइना 2025 प्रोग्राम। मतलब ऐसे स्पेसिफिकली मेंशन किया है कि यूएस सेड दैट दीज एक्शंस आर स्पेसिफिकली टारगेट अगेंस्ट मेड इन चाइना 2025 प्रोग्राम, comma, an initiative which aims to transform China into advanced manufacturing powerhouse. Next, China subsidizing steel exports, which means dumping to gain the market share. Next, China arm twisting foreign companies to hand over the technology in exchange of access to Chinese markets. Next, cyber theft, ठीक है, ये सब मेन ग्रीवेंसेस हैं, और इसके साथ साथ वही करेंसी मैनिपुलेशंस। नेक्स्ट, करेंसी मैनिपुलेशंस। अब नेक्स्ट लिखो, व्हाट आर मेन ग्रीवेंसेस अगेंस्ट नाफ्टा। इस बार नाफ्टा पे भी क्वेश्चन आ सकता है, ठीक है, शॉर्ट नोट में आ सकता है एग्जाम में, नाफ्टा पे भी। तो मेन ग्रीवेंसेस अगेंस्ट नाफ्टा, सो हियर राइट सिंस देयर इज अ ग्लोबल सप्लाई चेन, comma, until and unless USA does not force all trading partners of China to change comma, the policy will have minimum effect. Right? Hence, not only NAFTA countries tariffs are imposed against EU, Japan, South Korea, India, and so on. Right? Right. As of now, US has given temporary relief to other countries. I think Japan को नहीं दिया. Temporary relief to other countries except China and Japan. ठीक है. तो Japan's economy is in depression. और जापान का भी जो मेजर एक्सपोर्ट है वो स्टील है, तो उससे फर्दर प्रेशर पड़ेगा जापान की इकोनॉमी को. और जापान प्रोटेक्शनिस्ट है. एक तो जापान और यूएस का कार रिलेटेड वॉर्स है, और दूसरा जापान इज प्रोटेक्शनिस्ट. यूएस वांट द ओपनिंग ऑफ जापान विद रिस्पेक्ट टू यूएस फार्मास्यूटिकल इंडस्ट्रीज. ठीक है. तो जापान को भी अभी मतलब जापान एंड चाइना, उनको कोई रिस्पाइट नहीं है, लेकिन ईयू और इंडिया इन सबको रिस्पाइट दिया है इन्होंने. ठीक है. तो इसमें टीपीपी का भी मेंशन है, 3 का तो मेंशन ही है. तो अब नेक्स्ट ये लिखो, राइट, नाफ्टा. व्हाट इज द मेन प्रॉब्लम विद नाफ्टा? हाँ, तो पहले तो समझ लो कि नाफ्टा जो है सबसे एम्बिशियस ट्रेड पैक्ट है. एम्बिशियस इन द सेंस कि इसमें लेबर लॉज और एनवायरमेंटल स्टैंडर्ड्स हैं. और ऐसा एज्यूम किया गया था कि नाफ्टा विल बेनिफिट यूएस इकोनॉमी सब्जेक्ट टू द कंडीशन यूएसए विल बी एबल टू इम्पोज, और नाफ्टा इज एबल टू इम्पोज द स्ट्रिक्ट environmental and labor standards. But नाफ्टा का जो मेन टेक्स्ट है उसका पार्ट नहीं है environmental and labor issues. Additional added है. तो they are not enforceable. These are voluntary measures. ठीक है. तो because they are voluntary, that is why they are not resulting into benefits to USA. And according to their data, ideally Mexico में wages hike होने चाहिए थे because of NAFTA policies, but actually wages decline हुए. ठीक है. Average wage of Mexico worker was more than what is now. ठीक है. तो यूएस का नाफ्टा से बाहर आने का एम नहीं है, लेकिन मेन एम क्या है? रीनेगोशिएट. एंड इफ रीनेगोशिएशन इज नॉट अकॉर्डिंग टू द यूएस इंटरेस्ट, देन दे वांट टू कम आउट. तो यहाँ पर भी गुड कॉप एंड बैड कॉप, बट prospects doesn't seem very good because of the strong stand which is taken by Canada. Of Canada or US. Second thing is, now the Mexican president, it is difficult because he is more anti-US and he is socialist. So Mexican president will be more flexible in change, it doesn't appear. तो इसलिए नाफ्टा का prospects are not that good. तो जब हम multilateralism and its future prospects discuss करेंगे, तो it's not that you just discuss WTO. TPP is, US is out, TTIP not moving, NAFTA may die. US, so you discuss even these facts also. ठीक है, तो नाफ्टा का मेन कंसर्न क्या क्या है, देखो व्हाट आर यूएस मेन कंसर्न्स इन नाफ्टा. अब यहीं पर जस्ट एक हिस्ट्री लिख सकते हो. राइट, फर्स्ट स्टार्टेड in 1989 with Canada. Mexico joined in 1994. Right? All duties and restrictions on imports have been gradually eliminated. Next, most ambitious trade deal. Ambitious trade deal which covers labor, environment, IPR, migration, trade in services. ठीक है. Now right, according to Trump, right, it is the worst trade deal ever. अब लिखो why. Right, it has reduced America's global exports. Next, it has benefited only few farmers and ranchers, 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 but otherwise there has been a huge job loss. Next, closing down and relocation of factories. Next, लिखो right. Contrary to the aims comma, wages of workers in Mexico declined. Next, Canada maintains high tariffs on dairy sector. ठीक है. अब नेक्स्ट लिखो, there are two primary goals, right? There are, ऐसे लिखो, two primary goals of NAFTA negotiations. First is update NAFTA with high standards update NAFTA with high standards. Right. It is to be noted that environmental and labor issues are aspirational. And hence does not come under dispute settlement. ठीक है. नेक्स्ट ऑब्जेक्टिव है, इसी में लिखो राइट, इसी में हाई स्टैंडर्ड में लिखो राइट. यूएस वांट्स टू इंक्लूड डिजिटल ट्रेड, आईपीआर मतलब स्ट्रॉन्गर नॉर्म्स होंगे, साइबर सिक्योरिटी, सेकेंड ऑब्जेक्टिव है रीबैलेंस. राइट, रीबैलेंस सो दैट companies set up their facilities in USA. Right, discourage outsourcing. Right, next paragraph. USA is particular about revising फर्स्ट लिखो रूल्स ऑफ ओरिजिन. ये बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है चाइना के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में. रूल्स ऑफ ओरिजिन को टाइटन करना है कि मैक्सिकन प्रोडक्ट्स में कितना चाइनीज प्रोडक्ट है. नेक्स्ट, इमिग्रेशन रूल्स. ठीक है, अब लिखो राइट. Right, it is believed that if NAFTA comes to an end, USA may suffer because goods will become costlier for the consumers. Right, further slow down in demand for US exports. राइट, अब लिखो प्रोस्पेक्ट्स. राइट, राइट, Canada has taken a strong stand right, according to the Canadian Prime Minister. इसीलिए सब लोग क्या आ रहे हैं, इंडिया जहाँ भी मार्केट मिले, साउथ कोरिया वाले. ठीक है, फिगर नहीं माने तब कहीं तो वो करना पड़ेगा. राइट, अकॉर्डिंग टू Canadian Prime Minister, he is ready to leave NAFTA, die altogether. Justin Trudeau, he is ready to leave NAFTA, die altogether rather than accept hard line demands. नेक्स्ट लिखो मैक्सिकन प्रेसिडेंट है ना, प्रेसिडेंट लोपेज ओब्राडोर, लोपेज लैब्राडोर याद रखो लोपेज तो उनका नाम होता ही है वहां पे लैटिन अमेरिकन वालों का, LOPZ लोपेज ओब्राडोर, OBRADOR Obrador, right? He is anti-American and has held that he will stand up to protect the interests of Mexico. अब नेक्स्ट लिखो TPP, TPP इसमें लिखो राइट, since WTO has not been able to enforce norms on China, Obama administration preferred the policy of multilateral trade talks with key trading partners. Hence, he started TTP and TTIP. ठीक है, right? The objective was to give message to China, India, either to reform or to be left out. Right, next. Trump prefers bilateralism over multilateralism. लिखो right, why? Right, better bargain for USA. ठीक है, right? He believes that coming out of TPP gives much better deal for USA. Right? देखो, there are 11 countries in TPP. Right? USA already has free trade agreement with 6 में आ गया कनाडा, मैक्सिको, ऑस्ट्रेलिया, चिली, पेरू एंड सिंगापुर. इनके साथ तो है ही है, ठीक है, राइट? only USA needs to update, or better है do it bilaterally. ठीक है. अब नेक्स्ट रह गया the other 5 countries are right Japan, Vietnam, Malaysia, New Zealand and Brunei. तो यहाँ पे बाकी तो ऐसे ही कुछ नहीं कर पाएंगे, सिर्फ एक जापान रहता है. ठीक है. कुल मिलाकर के इनके साथ डील ऑलरेडी है, बाकियों के कुछ औकात नहीं. रह गया जापान. जापान के साथ ही डील करनी है तो बायलेटरली क्यों नहीं करो. ठीक है. और बाकियों के साथ अपडेट करना है. मल्टीलेटरल में फिर एक वीक पोजीशन करनी से फायदा क्या. ठीक है. तो ट्रम्प है अक्लमंद इंसान की नहीं. हाँ, तो नेशनल इंटरेस्ट ही है, और कौन, हम तो यहाँ कहीं और रह रहा है. मेन क्या है, हमारी प्रॉब्लम है कि वी थिंक ही इज आवर प्रेसिडेंट, ही शुड वर्क फॉर अस, और ही इज अ ग्लोबल प्रेसिडेंट. तो ही इज अमेरिकन प्रेसिडेंट एंड अमेरिकन प्रेसिडेंट इज सपोज टू डू व्हाट इज इन यूएस इंटरेस्ट. चेंज नहीं है, लेकिन इनकी टेक्निक्स और स्मार्टर हैं. ठीक है. देखो राइट फाइन. यस,
एक जगह पे कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन दिखता है मैडम ये यूएस पॉलिसी में. दे शुड बी फ्रेंडलियर विद चाइना, सॉरी रशिया एज ए.
व्हाई फ्रेंडलियर. नो,
दे शुड बी आइडियली,
व्हाई.
बिकॉज टू बैलेंस चाइना एंड इट्स साइज एज इट अपीयर्स कॉमन सेंसिबल.
चाइना के साथ फ्रेंडलियर, रशिया के साथ फ्रेंडलियर होने का फायदा नहीं है. रशिया के साथ कंटेनमेंट करना पड़ेगा. रशिया तो मेन थ्रेट कर देगा. क्या फायदा मिलेगा रशिया के साथ फ्रेंडली होने में. कुछ कंट्रीज हैं उनकी अपनी नेशनल इमेज है, तो रशिया खुद को एक ग्रेट पावर बनाता है. और रशिया का मैंने क्लास में पढ़ाया था, कंपल्शन है, एक्सपैंड और इट विल पेरिश. एक्सपेंशन के अलावा कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है रशिया को. रशिया हैज टू एक्सपैंड. अगर एक्सपैंड होता है तो फिर इट विल बी अ ट्रांसयूरेशन पावर. किसी भी दूसरा पावरफुल कंट्री को स्ट्रॉन्ग करने में फायदा नहीं होता. तो रशिया के साथ तो इनकी पॉलिसी हमेशा कंटेनमेंट की रहनी चाहिए. चाहे रशिया हो, चाइना, सबके साथ कंटेनमेंट पॉलिसी है. इंडिया के साथ भी कंटेनमेंट पॉलिसी है. जिसका भी पोटेंशियल है टू इमर्ज एज अ पावर. यूएस की पॉलिसी ही कंटेनमेंट है, कंटेनमेंट और आइसोलेशन. और क्यों करें वो, मतलब रशिया जैसे चाइना को वीक करा, चाइना को इन्होंने स्ट्रॉन्ग किया तो चाइना सिर पर चढ़ गया ना. तो चाइना से ज़्यादा टेक्नोलॉजिकली एडवांस तो रशिया है. रशिया को तो कंट्रोल भी नहीं कर पाओगे. चाइना तो मान लो कंट्रोल कर लो, तो चाइना क्या है, पांडा है, और रशिया क्या है, बियर. पांडा और बियर में बियर इज मोर डेंजरस. नहीं कर सकते. उनकी सबके साथ ही कंटेनमेंट पॉलिसी है. एनी कंट्री ऑफ एनी मतलब विच एवर कंट्रीज ऑफ सम सिग्निफिकेंस. कुछ नहीं बेकार होगा, सब सुधर जाएंगे. क्वाड कैन नॉट बी ए नेम. उन्हें क्या करना है क्वाड का. चाइना कौन उनके ऊपर अटैक करने वाला है. क्वाड तो जापान और इंडिया को चाहिए ना, उनको थोड़ी चाहिए. क्या इंटरेस्ट है, कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं. उसने बताया ना ट्रेड पॉलिसी और स्ट्रेटेजिक पॉलिसी परफेक्ट एक ही है. कहाँ कॉन्ट्रोडिक्टरी है? से आई टोल्ड कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री, दे आर कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री. ट्रेड और उस वॉर में वही तो कह रहा है, ट्रेड वॉर्स आर गुड एंड इजी टू विन, और वो वाली वॉर डिफिकल्ट टू विन. अच्छा लिखो एनीवे. US based MNCs, yes, but Trump wants US MNCs to come back to USA and provide employment to Americans which they have lost. So he wants what? That he is changing the domestic taxation policies and giving incentives to American companies to work in America, to establish their, either China should reform itself, otherwise there is a loss. Who? MNC's only objective is to increase the profits. So if US is going, MNCs और farmers दोनों के लिए उन्होंने compensation program बनाया हुआ है. फार्मर्स से मेन सपोर्ट है ना ट्रम्प का. तो चाइना हैज टारगेटेड सोयाबीन, दैट इज वाई फार्मर्स का एक सपोर्ट प्रोग्राम दे हैव इंट्रोड्यूस्ड. और दूसरा, MNCs आर गोइंग एंड एस्टैब्लिशिंग देमसेल्व्स इन चाइना बिकॉज लेबर इज चीप. अब लेबर इज चीप है और चाइना क्या करता है? करेंसी डिवैल्यू करके रखता है. डिवैल्यू करके तो किसी के लिए भी एंटरप्राइज एस्टैब्लिश करना चाइना में चीपर है ना. तो चाइना में लोग जाते हैं, तो दैट इज अफेक्टिंग. तो अगर चाइना विल बी एबल, इफ दे फोर्स चाइना टू फॉलो द लेबर नॉर्म्स, इन्वायरमेंटल, IPR, तो चाइना का कोई एडवांटेज नहीं रहेगा ना. देन दे विल बी एबल टू एक्सप्लॉइट चाइना एंड बेनिफिट USA. वही, they are very clear in their perspective. High tariffs on China. That's why what he wants, make in America, not make in China. Huh? So some industries will affect, but not all. Plus US has its own domestic industries also, na. Domestic, they can replace, na. US is almost self-sufficient in every field. The only logic was opening of trade. It will, if it is profitable. If it is not profitable, sense क्या है market का? If production at home is costlier, then outside you produce there. But if that is proving counterproductive, ठीक है, तो what is to be done? फिर USA is to self-sufficient country. कहाँ से लाए? लास्ट ईयर. तो बहुत आसान क्वेश्चन. पहले इसको खत्म करो, फिर क्वेश्चंस करेंगे. कहाँ पहुंचे? TPP. तो TPP में लिखो राइट, USA has to negotiate only with Japan. तभी तो जापान वाले भी थोड़ा थोड़ा संबंध ठीक कर रहे हैं ना चाइना से. हाथ वाथ मिला रहे, इंडिया से कर रहे, अफ्रीका शिफ्ट कर रहे हैं ना कि भाई राइट. तो दिस इज व्हाई ही हैड कम आउट ऑफ TPP. ठीक है. अब नेक्स्ट लिखो ट्रम्प ऑन WTO. ट्रम्प क्या मतलब? ट्रेड, US ट्रेड पॉलिसी ऑन WTO. right? USA has threatened to come out of WTO also. Even UN is threatened कि भाई UN से भी निकल रहा है हम लोग. Threatened to come out of WTO. ठीक है. अब लिखो, what are the main grievances against WTO? पहला, right, it has failed to enforce the norms. Right. China continues to be protectionist. Comma, takes the benefit of the trade system, या world trade system, without reciprocity. Next, WTO has failed to deliver justice. Right. USA is specifically critical of WTO's dispute settlement body. Right. USA is not allowing the appointment of the members on the appellate board. Right. If USA does not change by the year 2019, there will be only one member remaining. Right. At present, only 4 out of 7 are serving. Right. As a rule, 3 members are required to decide a dispute. Right. WTO dispute settlement body will not be able to deal with the stress. Right. According to USA, first thing, right, the members on the dispute settlement body have become activists. Right, next, they are not observing the mandate of WTO agreements, comma, going beyond that. ठीक है, next, right, they have failed to bring culprits to the justice. Culprits to the justice. Right? This shows lack of transparency. Accountability. तो अगर जजमेंट इनके फेवर में है तो ट्रांसपेरेंट है, किसी और के फेवर में तो नहीं है. अब अगेंस्ट टैरिफ्स जो यूएसए के हैं, जो ये सारी कंट्रीज हैं वो WTO में जाएंगी. अब WTO में है कौन सेटलमेंट करने के लिए? तो बेस्ट ये है कि WTO की जो बॉडी है उसको ख़त्म ही कर सकते हो. ठीक है, अब नेक्स्ट लिखो, एक और लिखो, राइट, एज पर द WTO norm, comma, dispute settlement body should resolve the dispute within 90 days. Right, they are exceeding the time limit. अब अकेले इतने सारे और भर भर के यूएसए खुद ही डिस्प्यूट ले आता है. ठीक है, तो एक तो ये दिक्कत है. अब दूसरी दिक्कत लिखो, राइट, द नेक्स्ट लिखो, मल्टीलेटरल ट्रेड टॉक्स आर स्टैग्नेटिंग. Because of the attitude of some members like India, right, despite the consensus at Nairobi. कौन सा था वो? 11th मिनिस्ट्रियल था कि 10th? हाँ, 13 तो नहीं था, छोड़ो, नैरोबी पता है ना, अभी बता रहे हैं. डिस्पाइट द कंसेंसस एट नैरोबी दैट दोहा राउंड ऑफ टॉक्स हैव लॉस्ट रेलेवेंस, comma, India at Buenos Aires, 10th राउंड ऑफ टॉक था, Buenos Aires 11th. Buenos Aires had again stick to the position that Doha round right remains on the agenda, right. Next लिखो, right, it is the attitude of some of the countries to block negotiations on fishing on illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing Next, rules on e-commerce, trips, next लिखो, right, the policies of countries like India impacts the interests of US farmers, and that of India and China impact the interest of manufacturers. Next लिखो, right, USA wants new guidelines for recognizing a country as developing country. Right, USA is not against special and differential treatment but China and India cannot receive similar treatment like that of countries in sub-Saharan region. ठीक है, ठीक है, लिखो लिखो, राइट, व्हाट इज द करंट अप्रोच ऑफ USA towards WTO? Right, USA is playing the game of good cop and bad cop, good cop dash bad cop. Right, first लिखो Trump, first threatening to come out of WTO. Second, contrary to the principles of WTO, imposed tariffs. Next लिखो, right, USA has used the clause of national security right, national security clause is considered as taboo and not to be used मतलब यूज करते नहीं है, लेकिन यूएसए ने एक्सट्रीम स्टेप लिया, WTO नेशनल सिक्योरिटी के कंटेक्स्ट में अलाउ करता है, टैरिफ्स को लगाना, राइट. लिखो, राइट, दिस टैबू वॉज broken for the first time by Gulf countries against Qatar. ठीक है, राइट. व्हाट इज द रैशनल टू स्टॉप? तो तब इतना इम्पोर्टेंस नहीं दिया गया था, लेकिन अभी इसका बहुत ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंस है. तो डिस्प्यूट सेटलमेंट में ट्रस्ट नहीं है, WTO नॉर्म्स में ट्रस्ट नहीं है. ठीक है, तो राइट, अब लिखो, राइट, हाउएवर एज अ गुड कॉप his trade representative Lighthizer, Light Lighthizer, believes that WTO has done the enormous amount of good. Right, and wants to renegotiate या update. अब लिखो, व्यूज ऑफ WTO डायरेक्टर. कौन है? रॉबर्टो आजीविडो. लिखो, राइट, ऑफ, लिखो इनका व्यूज, ऑफ ऑल ट्रम्प्स assaults, comma, his assault on WTO, ब्रैकेट में लिखो, multilateralism, is most relentless. Full stop. Right. Tit for tat war. Will unleash the destructive mercantilism. Right, next paragraph. Right, it is said that comma, when the two elephants fight, comma, it is the grass that is, right, inverted commas, wretched of the earth, WRETCHED, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट फ्रेज है, wretched of the earth suffer. Right, next लिखो, राइट, WTO डायरेक्टर mentions डैश करके लिखो, वेदर और नॉट यू कॉल इट अ ट्रेड वॉर, comma, certainly the first shots have been fired. Full stop, right, fired, dot dot करके लिखो, this is the time for anyone concerned about world trading system to speak up. अब देखो, who should speak up? Who should speak up? EU नहीं, इंडिया. हमको EU सिविल सर्विसेज तोड़ी देनी, इंडियन सिविल सर्विसेज देनी है, तो इंडिया ही लिखो. Who should speak up? इंडिया. सो हाँ, बोल इंडिया बोल. ठीक है, क्या बोल, या तो इंडिया बोले या चाइना. इनको बोलना पड़ेगा कि भाई हम मान रहे, और ये सब दोहा वोहा सब है इररेलेवेंट. मैसेज समझो, वो ये नहीं कह रहा बचाओ, कह रहा है स्पीक अप. ठीक है, और इंडिया क्या करवा रहा है? बिकॉज ऑफ दोहा डेवलपमेंट टॉक्स कुछ हो ही नहीं रहा है. ठीक है, लिखो राइट. अब लिखो, व्हाट इज द फ्यूचर ऑफ मल्टीलेटरलिज्म? हैज इंडिया शोन एनी लीडरशिप? कब? इनफॉर्मल समिट इन दिल्ली. अब लिखो राइट, क्या है फ्यूचर ऑफ मल्टीलेटरलिज्म? राइट, as evident from the statements of the Director General of WTO, it seems that multilateralism, if not dying, it is certainly in crisis. Right? US has used all of its leverages. Comma. Right? Hence, if multilateralism is to be protected, right, a strong will and determination is needed by all. Right? However, it doesn't seem happening. Right? China, India may be coming together, but EU has discontent against both of these countries. Right? EU may disagree with the style, but it does not disagree with the substance of the Trump's arguments. देखो right, either multilateralism will collapse or it will change according to the developed countries वही है, by fear or by love. Trade wars will be won by these countries. ठीक है, देखो राइट, it is to be noted that headquarters of WTO are located in the same ill-fated building. Which once belonged to, शायद जानबूझ के बनाया हो इन्होंने, to League of Nations. Right, League of Nations died because of American isolationism. WTO is also at the mercy of Washington. What India has to do and what India should do, I think we'll do in the next class. अभी कुछ समझ में आया? लिख लोगे आंसर? नेक्स्ट क्लास तो ऑन शेड्यूल है, वरना चेक करो, अगर पहले होगी तो आई मेल चेक किया करो. हाँ, संडे तो ऑन शेड्यूल ही है. पहले अगर लगा कि करेंगे तो फिर सेम टाइम किसी दिन कर लेंगे.
Regarding that coming out of TPV, one reason could also be that in team members are there, so 11 can corner USA, but USA will corner individually.
वही तो कह रहे हैं कि बाकियों से तो कनाडा, मैक्सिको तो जापान को हैंडल कर रहा है. पता